Welcome to According to Sam, folks. This is episode 328. Thank you for joining me today. Going to pick up right where we left off in the last podcast. We're still talking about Epstein, but we're going to be talking about it a little different from the way other people are talking about it. People are reporting on this ridiculous article that was just published in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. People are reporting on Trump committing to releasing grand jury testimony now and all that stuff. I don't want to focus on that stuff. I want to focus today, and some people are talking about this, the intelligence connections and what Jeffrey Epstein was actually doing. So with no delay, let's get right into it. I posted this meme on my X account a few days ago, and I love this meme. It's two little girls. One little girl has her head in the toilet. She is vomiting. She is ill. And the other little girl is holding her hair. And it says, people just waking up, and the people who are just waking up and just realizing what the deep state is about. What's really going on in our world, those people that are just, realizing with this Epstein controversy that there is a deep state and there is a lot going on behind the scenes. Those people are not doing well right now. And people who've been awake, like myself, people who've been awake knew that you were never going to get the Epstein files. I said this back in May. You're never going to know who the Epstein client lists are. You're never going to know that. And so I'm not surprised by what's going on with this controversy at all. I also posted this post on my X account earlier this week. And this is a quote from John Fitzgerald Kennedy, from a speech that he gave to the United States Press Club early on in his presidency in 1961. This was after the Bay of Pigs fiasco. And if you don't know, after the Bay of Pigs fiasco, Kennedy famously said that I want to splinter the CIA into tiny pieces and scatter them into the wind. He fires Alan Dulles, who had been the director of Central Intelligence since the beginning of the agency. He fires all of Dulles's deputies. And this was a speech that he gave to United States press after the Bay of Pigs incident. I think this may have been around either March. I think this was late February or March when he gives this in 1961, gives this speech. And this is a segment excerpt from the speech. He says, "For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly effective machine which combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned. No rumor is printed. No secret is revealed." Folks, that's why I knew. That's why I knew that you're never going to see the Epstein client list. And so let's talk about what's going on here with this Epstein client list. Alex Acosta was the attorney that was prosecuting Epstein when he was first arrested in 2005. The DOJ attorney. Whose DOJ was it in 2005? George W. Bush's DOJ. The attorney general at that time was Alberto Gonzales. So Alberto Gonzales, someone from Alberto Gonzales's DOJ under the Bush administration, told Alex Acosta, who was the attorney prosecuting Epstein in 2005, leave it alone. I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence, that he was a member of intelligence. He doesn't say Mossad. He says intelligence. Could be any intelligence agency. So this is the first clip that we're going to play today is a clip of Alex Acosta being asked about that quote that he was told that Epstein was intelligence during the Bush administration under the Alberto Gonzales Justice Department. He's asked about that. And I want you to listen to what Alex Acosta says.
Secretary, were you ever made aware at any point?
Want you to, that Alex Acosta becomes the labor secretary in 2017 under the first Trump administration. And this was a issue with him in his confirmation, and an issue with controversy around him being the labor secretary.
Your handling of this case, Mr. Secretary, were you ever made aware at any point your handling of this case if Mr. Epstein was an intelligence asset of some sort?
So there has been reporting to that effect, and let me say there's been reporting to a lot of effects in this case, not just now but over the years, and again, I would hesitate to take this reporting as fact. This was a case that was brought by our office. It was brought based on the facts. And I look at that reporting and others. I can't address it directly because of our...
I can't address it directly. Why can't you address it directly? He's asked, were you told that Epstein was an intelligence asset? And he says, yeah, I've seen that reporting. I can't address it directly. Say yes or no. Either you were told that he was an intelligent asset or not. And you were.
And I look at that reporting and others. I can't address it directly because of our guidelines. But I can tell you that a lot of reporting is just going down rabbit holes.
So he doesn't say no when he's asked about it. Were you told that Epstein was an intelligence asset? So Vicky Ward, who is a British journalist, Vicky Ward actually wrote the very first expose on Epstein in 2003. It was in the Vanity Fair. It was in Vanity Fair, and it was titled "The Talented Mr. Epstein." And Vicky Ward was on with Megyn Kelly this week, and this is a very interesting interview because she's been working on this case for over 20 years now. British journalist Vicky Ward, who wrote the very first expose on Epstein in 2003. I want you to listen to some of the things that she says to Megyn Kelly in their talk this week. Take a listen to Vicky Ward.
First of all, I 100% stand by what I reported in the Daily Beast.
Oh, that's right. So Vicky Ward, I need to make this clear. Vicky Ward was the one who reported that Alex Acosta was told, I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. Vicky Ward is the one who first reported that Alex Acosta was told that Epstein was intelligence and to leave it alone. And she did that in an article that she wrote for Daily Beast in 2018. So I just want to make that clear.
Because there are, as you say, so many questions. First of all, I 100% stand by what I reported in the Daily Beast in 2019. I was told directly by someone in the Trump transition who had met with Alex Acosta in the transition and asked if the issue of Jeffrey Epstein would be a roadblock or a problem for his confirmation. And the answer came back, no. And, I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and they moved on. Obviously wasn't in the room in the Trump transition. I was told this anonymously, so I can't name my source, but nothing has happened since then to make me think that there was anything wrong with that person's memory or what they told me.
So this is someone from, like I said, Alex Acosta was the labor secretary in Trump's first administration. This is someone from Trump's transition team, who told her, she can't name who because it was told to her in confidence, but she says that she stands by that reporting and nothing has changed. That someone from Trump's transition team told her that Alex Acosta had been told to this. Alex Acosta had been told to leave it alone because Epstein belonged to intelligence. So this is, it would be impossible for Trump not to know this. What Vicky Ward is reporting, because it was someone from Trump's transition team in 2016, 2017 that told her that Alex Acosta was told to leave the Epstein case alone in 2005 in the Bush administration, between 2005 and 2008 when he got the sweetheart plea deal in the Bush administration. So she was told by someone from the Trump transition team that Alex Acosta was told he was intelligence, and she stands by that. And so Trump knows that. Trump knows that he's intelligence, that he's part of the intelligence community and an intelligence asset. So this is more of the conversation with Vicky Ward and Megyn Kelly. Let's take a listen.
Without the money, he could not have committed the sexual crimes. So where did the money come from? Mm-hmm. And who are the people who propped him up financially, and why have they not been held to account? That's
a good question. All that's a good question. Where'd the money come from? Guy goes from being a math teacher to a billionaire owning 2 islands, properties all over the place. Where'd the money come from? That's what everybody wants to know. Where'd the money come from? And who were the people that gave him the money and propped him up? And why haven't those people been held accountable, is what Vicky Ward asks.
Mm-hmm. And who are the people who propped him up financially, and why have they not been held to account? That, I think, is what people understandably want the answers to. And I don't quite understand.
So you heard it here from Vicky Ward. Julie K. Brown, who's been covering him for years too, said the same thing. Everyone who's really been following this case closely says the same thing. Follow the money.
Where'd the money come from?
Where did it come from?
Where'd the money come
that
from?
That alone is worth more disclosure. And someone needs to answer that question. I mean, that's knowable through a forensic accounting of Jeffrey Epstein's documents, of his contacts, of who paid him the money. Like, where did it come from when it went into the bank accounts? Where did it go out, if at all, by Jeffrey? Yeah. Like, we've never received the answers on that.
No. And I mean, one thing that struck me, Megyn, when I was sitting through Ghislaine Maxwell's trial were that, you know, I mean, you're a trained lawyer, you know this, that they kept that prosecution so tightly focused on her and the sexual crimes. It was deeply frustrating to sit there and sort of see names of famous wealthy people. Yes, they were on planes, they knew Jeffrey Epstein, but you kept wondering, well, what else did they know? Did they, you know, did they fund Jeffrey Epstein? And by the way, did Jeffrey Epstein then steal from them? Because that was the other thing that Epstein used to say to me back in 2002, was that, you know, one of the reasons he was able to come in and, as he described it, be James Bond for all these wealthy Europeans and go and find their money for them, was they came to him because rich people, when they lose their money, he said, they don't go to the authorities because it's too embarrassing. Well, you know, look how history turned full circle when, after Jeffrey Epstein died, Leslie Wexner, his benefactor, suddenly admitted, because he was sort of caught in a public crosshair, that Jeffrey Epstein had in fact stolen $47 million from him. But it's not something that Leslie Wexner, you'll note, went to the authorities over. And what I did wonder.
That just makes you ask more. Like, what does Leslie Wexner have to hide?
What does Leslie Wexner have to hide? So we talked about Leslie Wexner in the last podcast. He is the owner of Bath and Body Works. He's the owner of the Limited brands. He's the owner of Victoria's Secrets. If you're shopping at Victoria's Secrets, you're putting money in Leslie Wexler's pocket. Where'd the money come from? Where'd the money come from for Jeffrey Epstein to go from being a school teacher, math teacher, to being a multi-billionaire with 2 islands in the Virgin Islands, properties, the biggest mansion in Manhattan, properties all over the place? Where'd the money come from? Where'd the money come from, Wexler? So who are these benefactors that Vicky Ward is talking about that people should be asking questions of these people? And why haven't these people been held accountable? People like Leslie Wexler, again, who is Jewish. We talked about this in the last podcast. From his parents are Russian Jews. He's of Jewish descent, a huge, supporter of the nation of Israel. Some of these other folks, Leon Black, another Jewish man, multi-billionaire Jewish man. Leon Black, if you go to his Wikipedia page, it says right here, Black resigned from, he was a capital or asset management firm is where he ran. He was CEO of Apollo Global Management, which was an asset management firm. And he resigned. Black resigns from both Apollo Global Management and the Museum of Modern Art in the wake of sexual misconduct allegations and revelations that he paid $158 million to Jeffrey Epstein. This guy, Leon Black, gave Epstein $158 million. Les Wexler is allowing Epstein to live on his properties and in Ohio. And who are some of these other people? This is another story about Leon Black. Leon Black agrees to pay $62.5 million to avoid Jeffrey Epstein related lawsuits in the Virgin Islands. And the Virgin Islands is where Epstein had these islands. Who are some of these other people? Steve Hoffman. This was Epstein's mentor. Hoffman was convicted on one of the largest Ponzi schemes that was ever prosecuted in the United States before Bernie Madoff. Jewish. All these people are Jewish. Leon Black, Jewish. Les Wexler, Jewish. Stephen Hoffenberg. I'm sorry. Stephen Hoffenberg is his name. This was Epstein's protege. Let's read a little bit here. In 1987, Hoffenberger met Jeffrey Epstein through a British defense contractor named Douglas Leese, who Hoffenberger claimed was an arms dealer. Leese was with Saudi Adnan Khashoggi and Prince Al Saud, so member of the Al Saud, so architect in building the $1 billion arms deal, Britain's biggest arms deal ever concluded, earning the prime contractor BAE Systems at least $43 billion. If you don't remember Khashoggi was the Wall Street Washington Post journalist who went into the Saudi embassy and then ended up dead. So Epstein was related or connected to Hoffenberger, who was connected to the Saudi government. Again, Hoffenberger was convicted of the largest Ponzi scheme ever before Bernie Madoff. All these people are connected to Epstein. Some of them are still alive. Wexler's still alive. Leon Black's still alive. Hoffenberger is dead. But, I mean, in answering the question of where this money came from, Epstein was connected to a lot of very, very wealthy Jewish people. Jewish people. But this guy it was connected to the Saudi government as well. So there's more going on here than just, Epstein being connected to Israel through all these wealthy Jewish people. Who's this guy? Edgar Brofman. Edgar Brofman was a Canadian and American businessman, but he's Canadian. He's founder. His family owns the Seagram's company, Canadian clubs, Seagram's, all that stuff, the liquor. He worked for his family distilled beverage, Seagram's, eventually becoming president, treasurer, and CEO. As president of the World Jewish Congress, Brofman is especially remembered for initiating diplomacy with the Soviet Union, which resulted in legitimizing the Hebrew language in the USSR. So all these people are Jews, but not only Jews, that they're Eastern European Jews, Russian Jews, that date their heritage back to Eastern Europe, Jewish people. Edgar Brofman also received a Presidential Medal of Freedom from Bill Clinton. He was connected to Epstein, multi-billionaire. All these very rich Jews connected to Epstein. Glenn Dubin, another billionaire hedge fund manager, is connected to Epstein. Dubin and Jeffrey Epstein. There are several connections between Dubin and Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein invested millions in Dubin's hedge fund and helped J.P. Morgan acquire Dubin's firm. Epstein had dated Dubin's wife, Eva Anderson, for nearly a decade. So who are these people? Are these people responsible for Jeffrey Epstein going from being a school teacher to a multi-billionaire, owning properties everywhere, islands, jets, a billionaire himself? Where did the money come from? Where did the money come from? And because of all these people, these very wealthy people, Wexler, Black, Hoffenberger, Brofman, Dubin, and many others. That's why so many people, when you see that Alex Acosta said that he was connected, that I was told that he was connected to intelligence. He doesn't say which intelligence agency, but he says, I was told that he was connected to intelligence agents, to intelligence, and he was an intelligence asset. When he says that, because of all these very wealthy Jewish people who Epstein was, had contact with and was involved with, that leads people to believe that it was Mossad, that Mossad is who Epstein was working for, and he was an asset for Israeli intelligence. I mean, I think that would make sense to a lot of people, but it's bigger than Mossad, and that's what I want to get into today. That yes, he was an asset for Mossad, of course, but he was an asset for the CIA. He was an asset for MI6. He was an asset for Saudi intelligence. He was an asset for many intelligence agencies, and we're going to talk about what Epstein did. This is a interview, or the Piers Morgan show, and Piers Morgan's got a former head of Israeli Mossad on here, along with Alan Dershowitz, who Alan Dershowitz was Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer when he was arrested back in 2005. And they get into this topic of, was Epstein an agent of Mossad or an asset of Mossad? Let's take a listen.
I was in Israel writing a book, and one day Jeffrey Epstein called me. I was his lawyer, and he said, I've never been to Israel. I'd like to come there and meet some people. Can you get a lunch together for me with 6 of Israel's smartest people? And so I arranged a lunch in the Tel Aviv hotel at which the president of the Supreme Court, the dean of this, the dean of that, he didn't know any Israelis. He absolutely didn't know anybody.
Sure, buddy.
I took him on a trip to the Shuk. We bought a couple of souvenirs. He got on the plane that night.
And so listen, what's his name? Horowitz says he knew Ehud Barak. Who's Ehud Barak? Ehud Barak was the prime minister of Israel. Ehud Barak, this is the Times of Israel. Ehud Barak met with Jeffrey Epstein dozens of times, flew on Jeffrey Epstein's private plane. This is a former prime minister of Israel, Ehud Barak. And this is the Times of Israel saying that we know that Ehud Barak had tons of connection to Epstein. Take a listen to this report.
More Jeffrey Epstein fallout. DailyMail.com has exclusively learned that the ever-expanding probe into the billionaire is now threatening to derail the Israeli election for prime minister. Chris Fargo has more now from our New York newsroom. Chris.
Jesse, DailyMail.com has exclusively uncovered photos of one of Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu's main challengers, former Prime Minister Ehud Barak, covering his face as he entered the convicted pedophile's home. This was back in 2016, and on the same day, a group of young women were also seen arriving at Epstein's home.
So Ehud Barak, former prime minister of Israel, and Mossad would have been under him as prime minister. He would be directing. So he's going, and this is after Jeffrey Epstein is arrested. We're going to go back to Dershowitz, and he's going to say this. So let's just, but Ehud Barak is filmed covering his face, going into Jeffrey Epstein's mansion after Jeffrey Epstein had been arrested in 2005, and young women going in as well. This is former Prime Minister of Israel.
Prime Minister Ehud Barak covering his face as he entered the convicted pedophile's home. This was back in 2016, and on the same day, a group of young women were also seen arriving at Epstein's home. Barak is already trying to distance himself from Epstein and their business partnerships. Writing on Facebook, as soon as the present charges related to Epstein became known, I instructed my lawyers to examine the options we have for expelling the company associated with Epstein from this partnership. Also, Jesse, Epstein accuser Courtney Wild held a press conference in Manhattan one day after.
So Ehud Barak was in business with Epstein after Epstein was arrested in 2005. And he says as soon as the current allegations became known, you're going into his mansion in 2016 with all these, women coming in. What's going on in the mansion? What's going on with all these women going in, and why are you covering your face? So this is 2016 that this happens, and Epstein was arrested in 2005. Epstein made the plea deal, the sweetheart plea deal on that arrest in 2008 in the Bush administration under Attorney General Alberto Gonzales. What are you talking about when you say as soon as these allegations became known? So Dershowitz here is trying to, divert from the accusations that Epstein was an asset of Mossad here. And he says, well, he didn't know any Jewish people. He didn't know any Israelis. Well, he knew all these people that were connected to Israel, like Les Wexler, like, what's his name? Edgar Bronfman. He knew them. You're talking about he didn't know any Israelis. I don't trust Alan Dershowitz on this at all, especially in the part about connections to Israel, because he is associated heavily with Israel. And of course, he would want to cover up for the connections between Epstein and Israel.
The Supreme Court, the dean of this, the dean of that. He didn't know any Israelis. He absolutely didn't know anybody. I took him on a trip to the Shuk. We bought a couple of souvenirs. He got on the plane that night. He knew I had Barak afterward. As a matter of, they did business.
So listen to what Dershowitz is saying. So Horowitz says he knew Ehud Barak, and after saying, well, he didn't know any Israelis, Dershowitz says, yeah, well, he knew Ehud Barak after he was arrested in 2005. That's worse. Dershowitz? That's worse. Everything connected with Trump and Epstein is before 2005. All the pictures and the quotes from Trump about how great Epstein was, all that was before 2005 when Epstein was arrested. Ehud Barak started flying and hanging out with Epstein and doing business with Epstein after he was arrested in 2005. That's not better, Dershowitz. That's worse.
He knew Ehud Barak afterward, as a matter of they did business together, but not when he was the prime minister at all. And the idea that the Mossad would retain somebody like Epstein is just preposterous.
Yeah,
Epstein,
whatever, buddy.
Was what he is, but he was not a Mossad agent. And the idea is so
Nobody says he was a Mossad agent. He was a Mossad asset, and he was an asset of many intelligence agencies.
But he was not a Mossad agent, and the idea is so conspiratorial and so absurd. It just focuses on, because Epstein is famous and infamous.
So this gentleman here was a former head of Mossad. His name is Danny Yochum. He was a former head of Mossad, and he's going to get in on this conversation.
Infamous. Oh, Israel must have something to do because it's Jewish. At bottom, it's a core anti-Semitic notion. If you're Jewish,
nonsense.
You must have some connection with Israel, and you must be doing bad things.
All these people have connections to Israel. All these people have connections to Israel. Wexler, Edgar, all these people are Jewish, and these guys for sure, Bronfman and Wexler have, huge connections to Israel, huge donors, and have done tons of advocacy for Israel. What are you talking about, Dershowitz?
Some connection with Israel, and you must be doing bad things, and you must be a spy for Israel. It is so preposterous, so absurd. Epstein was many things, but he was not
on the contrary,
a member of Mossad.
If I were a Mossad officer, I would.
I forget this guy's name, but he's a former CIA agent. This is what he says.
So preposterous, so absurd. Epstein was many things, but he was not
on the contrary,
a member of Mossad.
If I were a Mossad officer, I would have targeted him from my first day on the job.
Yeah, and what he's saying, what this former CIA agent is saying is that, yeah, he wasn't an agent, but I would have targeted him as an asset. I would have made him an asset from my first day on the job. I mean, if you understood what he was doing, and if you're in intelligence, you knew what Epstein was doing, yeah, he would be an asset, not an agent, but an asset. Absolutely.
Officer, I would have targeted him from my first day on the job because he had access to important people. You would have been fired
then. You would have been
absolutely
fired.
Not. Important people with important information.
All right, so now the former head of Mossad gets into it. I want you to listen to what he says.
Dealing with fake information.
Well, let's go to somebody who may know the answer for sure. Danny.
Yeah.
Yes, talk to us about Jeffrey Epstein.
Remember, I reiterate what I said some 15 minutes ago. Since the Pollard affair, we do not dare to do anything related to espionage in the United States of America.
Weren't you the guy that tapped Bill Clinton's phone?
I love Scott Horton
very well because I met him, President Clinton, because I met him a lot of times when I was the chief of staff of Barack and participated in all the rounds of talks with the Syrians, Palestinians, Jordanians, and the Americans. I was part of the group. Being in Camp David, I know him very, very well. I appreciate very, very well President Clinton, and I think that he, as all the other presidents as well, assisted essentially the state of Israel. You have to understand, we are a small country. We are surrounded by enemies till now.
So it's funny. He says that, I was calling him Scott Horton, Horowitz for somebody. This is Scott Horton. investigative journalist and an author. He says, weren't you the guy because he says, we don't do any espionage in the United States. He says, weren't you the guy that tapped Clinton's phones? And he says, I knew Clinton, but he didn't answer that question if he tapped Clinton's phones.
Very well. I appreciate very, very well President Clinton, and I think that he, as all the other presidents as well, assisted essentially the state of Israel. You have to understand, we are a small country. We are surrounded by enemies till now. All the terror organizations are with the aim to kill as many Israelis and as many Americans, by the way, as possible. The Iranians call us the little Satan, and they call the big Satan. So we need to have very good and professional intelligence apparatuses.
Okay, but Danny, let me ask you. Danny, let me ask you something. Danny, let me just jump in.
Yes.
Danny,
this is an important question that Piers Morgan is getting ready to ask Danny, who was the former head of Mossad.
Danny, let me ask you. Danny, let me ask you something. Danny, let me just jump in.
Yes.
Danny, let me ask you something. As a former head of Mossad, if Jeffrey Epstein had been working with Mossad, would you even tell us?
No.
Would you admit it?
Well,
exactly.
So they start laughing. The former CIA director and Scott Horton started laughing. You notice that Dershowitz isn't laughing because that's a very important question. That he doesn't say that he's an agent. Piers Morgan asked if Jeffrey Epstein was working. If you guys were working with Epstein as a asset, would you even be able to tell us? Would you tell us? He says no.
Would you even tell us?
No.
Would you admit it?
No. No, I wouldn't tell you. So, I mean, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? All right, so back to Vicky Ward and the interview that she was doing with Megyn Kelly this week. They get into Dershowitz and something that Dershowitz said on another podcast earlier this week. And I want you to listen to what Vicky Ward says here.
There's the Tucker Carlson allegation, which is the most absurd of all. He worked for the Mossad. He worked for the Jews. He worked for Israel. And don't call me an anti-Semite just because I say he worked for Israel. No. You're just wrong. You're just dead wrong. He didn't work for Israel. Let me tell you how I know. I was his lawyer along with 4 or 5 other lawyers. If he had worked for any intelligence agency, the Mossad, the Shin Bet, the CIA, anything, any intelligence agency, the first person he would tell would be me and the other lawyers and say, hey, get me a better deal. I don't like this deal.
Get me a better deal. I don't like this deal. He got a sweetheart deal. What are you talking about? I think that is hilarious that Alan Dershowitz says that. Well, he would have divulged to me that he was an intelligence asset because I was his lawyer and negotiating for it. You got a sweetheart deal for him. What are you talking about? Alex Acosta, who was the lawyer prosecuting him, was told to leave it alone. I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence. Epstein didn't need to tell you he belonged to intelligence. They conveyed that to the lawyer who was prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein. They didn't need to tell, Jeffrey Epstein didn't need to tell you, his lawyer, about his connections to intelligence to get a better deal. They conveyed that. The Bush administration and Humberto Gonzalez's DOJ, they conveyed that to the lawyer that was prosecuting him to get him a better deal. They didn't need you to negotiate a better deal. I tell you, my lawyer, that I'm connected to intelligence. No, they told the lawyer that was prosecuting him. What are you talking about? These people are clowns, I swear. This is some crazy stuff. And Alan Dershowitz tried to say that the reason I know he wasn't intelligence is because he would have told me to get him a better deal. No, they told the lawyer that was prosecuting him that he was intelligence to get him a better deal.
Anything, any intelligence agency, the first person he would tell would be me and the other lawyers and say, hey, get me a better deal. I don't like this deal.
You got a great deal.
I'm going to jail for a year and a half. I have to register as a sex offender. I worked as an intelligence source, so get me a better deal. He didn't tell us that. We asked him everything. We asked him what information
when he says that he went to jail for a year and a half, that was house arrest. Get me a better deal than house arrest for the crimes that Jeffrey Epstein's accused of? Come on.
After register as a sex offender, I worked as an intelligence source. So get me a better deal. He didn't tell us that. We asked him everything. We asked him what information is there conceivably that could help you. We asked him whether people he could testify against.
They did, bro. He didn't need you to get him a better deal. The Bush administration was already working on getting him a better deal because they knew he was part of intelligence. They didn't need you to get him a better deal, Dershowitz. This is ridiculous.
That's what lawyers do.
I'd love to know your reaction to that. I mean, when I watched it, I thought, okay, I'm not sure Epstein would have disclosed that to his defense attorneys. I actually think there'd be a different way of getting to Alex Acosta on it. But what do you think?
Well, I know Alan obviously very well by now. I mean, I think you're right, Megan, in that Jeffrey Epstein wouldn't have needed to say anything to Alan. Alan would have been more aware than anybody else that Jeffrey Epstein's money, which was in turn paying for this dream team of lawyers, was coming from the richest supporter of Israel in this country.
When she says that the money paying for the lawyers, paying Alan Dershowitz's fee is coming from the richest supporter of Israel in this country, she is talking about Leslie Wexner. And if you watch the whole interview, it's clear that she's talking about because she references Leslie Wexner by name and says the biggest supporter of Israel. So that's what she's talking about when she says that Alan Dershowitz would have known that Epstein's money that was paying him was coming from Leslie Wexner.
And anybody else, that Jeffrey Epstein's money, which was in turn paying for this dream team of lawyers, was coming from the richest supporter of Israel in this country. Some things are just out there in plain sight. And you have to be careful. I've never speculated that Jeffrey Epstein was a, quote, Mossad agent. I'm pretty sure he wasn't, in that, he operated at a level where, not on a government payroll. He didn't need to be on anybody's payroll. I mean, people have different roles in quote unquote intelligence. And there are people, and I reported this in Chasing Ghislaine, the podcast series that I made about the sort of the men and the money around Epstein. There are people who the intelligence community call hyperconnectors. And Jeffrey Epstein, particularly actually in the last decade of his life, was unusual in that he was very close to Israeli leadership and the prominent Jewish
but they weren't the only ones.
Country and to presidents. But he was also, he had Mohammed bin Salman, now the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, to his house. He knew NBZ. He talked about his close relationship to the leaders of various African dictatorships. He even, he bragged, and you never know whether to believe what Jeffrey Epstein tells you, that he was close to Putin. So somebody like that, which is not, by the way, dissimilar from the kind of networking that Robert Maxwell had, somebody like that is useful, frankly, to everybody.
Everybody. Hyper connected is what she says. She says he was hyper connected. That she doesn't believe that he was a Mossad agent. I don't believe he was a Mossad agent either. He was a Mossad asset. He was a CIA asset. He was an asset of the Five Eyes. That's why I titled my last podcast The Sixth Eye, because Israeli intelligence works closely with the Five Eyes and the Western intelligence agencies, including United States intelligence, CIA, MI6, in Britain, Australian intelligence, Canadian intelligence, New Zealand intelligence. That's Five Eyes, and then Israel, the Sixth Eye. But like she says, he was working with Saudi intelligence. He was working with despots in Africa, Putin. He was hyper connected. He was an asset for all of them. He wasn't just working for Mossad. And I think that allows these people to say, oh, he wasn't a Mossad agent, which is a misnomer. Nobody's saying he was an agent. He was an asset, which is something totally different. So all these people were saying, no, he wasn't an agent. No, we know he wasn't an agent, but he was an asset. This is Eric, what's his last name? Forget Eric's Weissman, or what's his last name? Let's see here. I forget. Oh, or Weinstein. Eric Weinstein. Sorry. Eric Weinstein. I want you to listen to what he says here. Eric Weinstein is a physicist, a academic intellectual, and Epstein approached him and tried to, recruit him, or I don't know what Epstein was trying to do. But I want you to listen to what Weinstein says here.
Jeffrey Epstein conducted a conference called Confronting Gravity. I don't know who Jeffrey Epstein was, but I would certainly bet money that he was a product of at least one or more elements of the intelligence community.
One
the CIA,
or more.
The FBI.
Those are ours, right? Department of Homeland Security has some of this stuff. Geospatial intelligence has some of this. It's a large network. I'm talking about people like David Grush.
You remember Stephen Hawking too? When the names came out, Stephen Hawking was connected to Epstein too. So there's a lot of this, these physicists and people in the scientific community who were connected to Epstein as well, and Weinstein is one of them.
I'm talking about people like David Grush. I'm talking about people potentially like David Fravor. I'm talking about people like Jake Barber. I'm talking about scientists like Leo Szilard. Imagine if Leo Szilard didn't know that the Manhattan Project was going on, or Jack Raper, a journalist who broke a story. These people all think that they're doing their jobs. I desperately want to know why Jeffrey Epstein knew so much about my work. And I want to know why he was connected to my graduate program. I was in the Harvard mathematics department. Jeffrey Epstein was absolutely connected to the Harvard math department. I want to know why.
How was he connected to the math department?
You're pushing me to say things I'm not going to say. But I don't mind.
I'm curious. I'm not trying to push you out.
I understand.
Yeah.
But
I don't have time to play this entire interview, but Weinstein, who's a physicist, and he says that Jeffrey Epstein also had all these connections with all these different scientists as well, that he was in intelligence. He says that he was connected to one or more intelligence agents. Nick Bryant. I want you to listen to what Nick Bryant says here. Nick Bryant is an investigative journalist. Nick Bryant broke the Franklin scandal. The Franklin scandal, read a little bit of the Wikipedia page about the Franklin child prostitution ring allegations. The Franklin child prostitution ring allegations began in June of 1988 in Omaha, Nebraska, with multiple prominent Nebraska political and business figures were accused involvement in the child sex trafficking ring. In 1988, who was president in 1988? Ronald Reagan, and then George H.W. Bush was basically running things in 1988 and becomes president. This is an election year. He wins that election and becomes president in 1989, George H.W. Bush. So this scandal was going on at the end of the Reagan administration in Nebraska, child sex trafficking. The allegation attracted significant public and political interest until the late 90s, when separate state and federal grand juries concluded that the allegations were unfounded and the ring was carefully crafted as a hoax. A hoax. That's what they're saying about Jeffrey Epstein now. Hoax. There's all this stuff about satanic rituals and stuff, and look into the Franklin scandal. But Nick Bryant was one of the investigative journalists who broke that, and he also worked on Epstein. I want you to listen to what Nick Bryant says here.
I was the guy that published Epstein's Black Book, yes. I had the Franklin scandal got published in 2009, 2010, and I'd spent 7 years on it. And it was dark. I mean, I went as deep into network as someone can go. I interviewed like one of the blackmail photographers, and And then Henry, who was interacting with various CIA assets. Like that network, like the Epstein network, it's intelligence. I mean, it's used to compromise people.
It's intelligence. It's used to compromise people. It's intelligence. It's used to compromise people. The Franklin scandal and Epstein were exactly alike. They're intelligence operations that are used to compromise people, is what Nick Bryan says.
Network, like the Epstein network, it's intelligence. I mean, it's used to compromise people. So I went very, very deep into that network. And what I found was unbelievably horrific. So that book took a lot out of me, and we just couldn't get people to buy it.
All right. So it was an intelligence operation that is used to compromise people, just like the Franklin scandal is what Nick Bryan says. He says something else here. I want you to listen to what Nick Bryan says.
I was pitching the Franklin scandal, which is basically almost identical to Epstein. The Franklin scandal is about Republicans, little boys, and Epstein is, for the most part, Democrats, little girls.
So the Franklin scandal is mostly dealing with Republicans and little boys, and the Epstein was Democrats and little girls. No, it's all the same network. He goes into how it's all the same network. I'm running out of time, but I really want to get into all of this. So what is this? When he says that it's an intelligence operation and it's used to compromise people, played this clip in the last podcast with one Jeffrey Epstein accuser, Maria Farmer, and she was the artist who was staying at Jeffrey Epstein's house, which was on Leslie Wexler's property. And then she's the one who says that there was cameras everywhere, pinhole cameras. She saw them.
He showed you cameras throughout the house.
The main thing he did when I walked in, I thought was interesting, he showed me where the men monitoring everything were. So if you're facing the house, there's a window on the right that's barred. That's the room, the media room is what he called it. Yeah. And so there was a door that looked like an invisible door with all this limestone and everything, and you push it and you go in. And I saw all the cameras. What it was like old televisions, basically, like stacked, but they were monitors inside this cabinet. And there were men sitting here, and I looked on the cameras and I saw toilet, bed, toilet, bed. I'm like, I'm never going to use the restroom.
So he had all the bathrooms and bedrooms in this house, this mansion, and he probably, had, all the places on the island with cameras and cameras. So that's what Nick Bryan means when he says this is an intelligence operation. It's used to compromise people. When people say that Epstein was an intelligence asset, that was his asset. That's what he did. He collected information that intelligence agencies all over the world could use. And that's how he was an asset. Let me explain to you how this works. There was a Showtime TV show called Homeland, and the star of the show, Claire Danes, was a CIA officer. This whole show is about the CIA. It's called Homeland on Showtime. Very, very interesting show. I actually loved watching this show. If you're into stuff like this and you haven't seen Homeland, I highly recommend going back and looking at this show. But she's a CIA officer, and everything in this show is about the CIA. Claire Danes, who's the star of this show, Homeland, actually did an interview with the recently fired Stephen Colbert on The Late Show on CBS. And I want you to listen to what the actress, Claire Danes, says about the show Homeland. Take a listen.
Okay, so now one of the things that you do you do this every season where you go get to spend some time with some actual spies?
We do. It's like the coolest part of my job.
Who sets that up? Who calls the CIA and goes, we just like to come in and hang out with you guys?
Yeah, so Henry Bermel, who is one of our founding fathers of Homeland, one of our writers, passed away a number of years ago, but his dad was in the CIA, and his cousin was a mentee of his father's and was also in the CIA, a very accomplished
So this guy who was one of the writers of the show Homeland, his dad was in the CIA, his cousin's in the CIA, and he's a writer. And if you watch this show, they talk about stuff in this show that the only way that you would be able to know this stuff if you were connected to the CIA. And she tells you that the show was heavily connected with the CIA.
And hang out with you guys.
Yeah, so Henry Bermel, who was one of our founding fathers of Homeland, one of our writers, passed away a number of years ago, but his dad was in the CIA, and his cousin was a mentee of his father's and was also in the CIA, a very accomplished person there. And he recently retired, but in his retirement, he curates this week-long spy camp for us producers and writers. And
really?
Yeah.
Is it like, you
know?
know?
So we park ourselves in a club in Georgetown and talk to, like, real spooks. And, you know, people in the intelligence community and the State Department and journalists and people who really...
What do they tell you that, like, what's the most surprising thing that they've told you about their jobs or something you would need to know from
Well, every year it's different, right? We've been at it for a while, and the climate has changed. But this year it was all about, you know, the distrust between the administration and the intelligence world, and the intelligence community was suddenly kind of allying itself with journalists.
The intelligence community was allying itself with journalists. She wasn't supposed to say that. Claire, you weren't supposed to say that the intelligence community was allying itself with journalists. Stephen Colbert, who's recently been fired, catches that she wasn't supposed to say that and immediately changes the subject. Watch how this happens.
But this year it was all about, you know, the distrust between the administration and the intelligence world, and the intelligence community was suddenly kind of allying itself with journalists, which usually they're not.
How long ago did you start shooting this?
Look at Colbert. You weren't supposed to say that. He changes the subject and put his hand on his head. That's his tell. You weren't supposed to say that, Claire, that the intelligence community is allying itself with journalists.
Is there something you would need to know from
Well, every year it's different, right? We've been at it for a while, and the climate has changed. But this year it was all about, you know, the distrust between the administration and the intelligence world, and the intelligence community was suddenly kind of allying itself with journalists, which usually they're not.
How long ago did you start shooting this season?
Oh my God, he goes back. How long ago did you start shooting this season? We don't want to talk about the intelligence community allying itself with journalists. All right, so what's going on with Epstein? How does this work? How does he work as an asset? This is a scene, I'm going to play a couple of scenes from the first season of Homeland, and I'll explain to you what's going on because I don't have a lot of time. Claire Danes, who I forget her name, and Carrie, her name's Carrie, who's bipolar in the show. There is a POW from the Iraq War, Marine, who gets free, and they suspect that he's a double agent. So she suspects that, so she starts spying on this Marine. His name is Brody, and she doesn't have a warrant to spy on him, which is against his Fourth Amendment rights. Her director of Central Intelligence, Saul, comes into the room where she's living, and he finds out that she's spying on Brody. And that's a big deal because she's violating Brody's Fourth Amendment. But she really believes that she has something on this guy, but she doesn't have a warrant. And I want you to take a look at what happens in this scene.
You think for 1 minute?
This is Saul. Saul's the DCI, the Director of Central Intelligence. He comes in and he finds out that she's bugged Brody's house. She's spying on him. She's violating his Fourth Amendment rights.
I thought that once I had some proof.
Do you have any? Anything? Even suggesting that Sergeant Brody's what you think he is.
No.
Then get a lawyer. Because you're going to need one when you report to the IG first thing in the morning.
Saul, please.
There isn't anything to say.
I'm just making sure we don't.
So he says that you're going to need a lawyer when I report you to the IG, to the Inspector General. I'm reporting you to the Inspector General because you violated this Marine's Fourth Amendment right without a warrant.
You report to the IG first thing in the morning.
Saul, please.
There isn't anything to say.
I'm just making sure we don't get hit again.
Oh, I'm glad someone's looking out for the country, Carrie.
I'm serious. I missed something once before. I can't let that happen again.
It was 10 years ago. Everyone missed something that day.
Everyone's not me.
I understand.
Miss anything.
I doubt a grand jury will.
You recruited me, Saul. You trained me. You put me in the field.
So he's telling her, I'm going to report you to the IG because you're spying on this guy without a warrant. This is illegal, Carrie. You can't do this, okay? This is illegal. All right, so this is in the next episode after she's convinced him that there's something here that we need to look into, and she's already been spying on him, but he needs to get a warrant. So this scene that I'm going to show you, this is the director of Central Intelligence meeting with a FISA judge to get a FISA warrant after the fact, after they're already spying on this guy. And they need to go and get a FISA warrant from this FISA judge. And I want you to take a look at this clip. This is the asset that Jeffrey Epstein was.
What do you think?
Oh. This is the FISA judge, okay? He's meeting privately with the FISA judge, the director of Central Intelligence.
Definitely an original. One of the preeminent Dutch painters of his time.
Relatively recent acquisition, if I'm not mistaken.
By an artist who, as it turns out, was not only Dutch, but also Jewish.
In a club with no Jewish members. That was your point, wasn't it? How do you take it?
Your Honor, I'm not asking for anything that hasn't been granted many thousands of times over in the last 10 years.
Surveillance warrant on an unspecified subject on American soil. If this were a standard request, you'd go through standard procedures.
If this was a standard request, you want a surveillance warrant on an unnamed subject in the United States. I mean, this is highly unethical. It's illegal. If this was a standard request, you'd go through standard means to get a FISA warrant. You go to court to do this, but you're not going to court. You're going to private. The DCI is going into private with this FISA judge to get this FISA warrant after the fact. It's not a standard request. I can't do this in, the standard ways where you go to court to get this FISA warrant. I need to do this private, in secret. Listen to more of this conversation.
Last 10 years.
Surveillance warrant on an unspecified subject on American soil. If this were a standard request, you'd go through standard procedures, so.
In this case, I don't have time for a government lawyer to petition the court.
So you're asking me to issue a FISA warrant directly to... What is it exactly you do at Langley these days?
Among other things, pay house calls to those I prefer not to have to...
Strong arm?
Strong arm. I make house calls to people that I prefer not to strong arm. This is the way the FISA judge describes what is going on here, that Saul, the director of Central Intelligence, is strong arming him into giving a FISA warrant on a unnamed subject in the United States, and completely illegal situation, that the director of Central Intelligence is strong arming this FISA judge to get a FISA warrant.
What is it exactly you do at Langley these days?
Among other things, pay house calls to those I prefer not to have to...
Strong arm?
Disturb.
Are you ever going to let me off your hook, Saul?
Are you ever going to let me off your hook, Saul? Are you ever going to let me off your hook? Why is the FISA judge on Saul's hook? Why is the FISA judge in a position where the DCI can strong arm him and force him to give a FISA warrant?
Are you ever going to let me off your hook, Saul?
We both know you're far too fine a judge for that, Jeffrey.
Can we at least act like this is about the law rather than a brief moment of weakness in my past?
Can we at least act like this is about the law instead of a brief moment of weakness in my past? How is Saul strong arming the judge? He's strong arming the judge because he has information from someone like Epstein that sold this information to the Central Intelligence, that sold this information to Mossad, where they can control this judge and force him to give a FISA warrant. And it's about a brief moment of weakness in his past. That's what's going on here. That was the asset that Epstein was. Epstein collected information on all these powerful people, and he gave it to these intelligence agencies that they could use to strong arm powerful people to get things that they wanted, like this FISA judge. That's what Epstein was doing. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see what we get back into on Monday. Got a lot of stuff that I still want to share with you guys on this. I'll see you on Monday, and again, have a good weekend.